My name is Gretchen Donovan. I'm 38 years old. I'm a senior ER nurse in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm the woman who shows up at 3 a.m. when strangers are bleeding, overdosing, or dying in front of their families. I'm the one who holds pressure on a wound while someone else sobs into my shoulder. I'm the one who stays calm when alarms scream and time collapses into seconds. And then I come home. I take off my shoes quietly so I don't wake my kids. I check homework folders. I pack lunches. I kiss foreheads. I raise Bailey, 10, and Dylan, 8, completely on my own. Their father left when Dylan was 2. No dramatic fight, no apology. Just an empty driveway and a child who stopped asking why. So I worked more, and then more, and then a little more after that. I told myself this was just a season, that someday things would even out. But that night, the night my brother looked my children in the eye and told them only good kids get real Christmas gifts from Santa, I realized something I had been refusing to see for years. I wasn't just tired, I was being used. A week before Christmas, we gathered at my parents' ranch-style house on the edge of Omaha. Snow pressed against the windows in thick, quiet sheets. The living room smelled like pine needles and the same cinnamon candles my mother, Sandra Donovan, had burned every December since I was a child. I carried in 8 oversized gift bags, arm straining, breath fogging in the cold. Everything was color-coded, labeled, receipts saved. That's how I survive night shifts. And single motherhood, control where I can find it. Cuatre. Zero total. Every dollar carefully spread evenly between my kids and my brother's son. I set the bags near the tree, and for half a second, I let myself believe this might be the year nothing went wrong. Then my brother opened his mouth. Bryce Donovan stood near the fireplace, beer already in hand. His wife Kayla crouched beside him with her phone out, filming. They were sorting presents into 2 neat piles on the carpet. Bryce smiled and looked straight at my kids. Santa only brings the real gifts to the good kids, he said loudly, making sure everyone heard. The other pile is just parent stuff. Kayla laughed like it was adorable. She reached for the biggest box, the gaming laptop I had hunted across 3 Black Friday sales to afford, ripped the paper off with dramatic flair, and slid it across the floor to their son. "Look what Santa brought early for our good boy," she said, camera zooming in. Gage Donovan beamed. Bailey's face went blank. Dylan's lip trembled just for a second before he forced it still. Kayla wasn't finished. She tore into the next box. The smartwatch with the blue band. Strapped it onto Gage's wrist right there while still recording. "See?" she said to the camera. "Good kids get the good stuff." My father, Larry Donovan, chuckled from his recliner and took another sip of beer. My mother patted Kayla's shoulder. "Oh, they're just being sensitive," she said. "It's only a joke." Bailey looked at me with those eyes that see everything. Dylan stared at the carpet like it might open up and swallow him. I felt the heat rise in my chest, the same heat I feel when a trauma rolls through the ER doors and I know someone isn't going to make it. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. In the emergency room, you learn to keep your hands steady even when everything inside is screaming. Family, I was starting to realize, is the one place that rule doesn't apply. This wasn't new. They'd been treating me like the family bank since I was 16. Back then, I waited tables after school at a diner off Dodge Street. Mom and Dad said college wasn't for girls who wanted to stay close to home. Bryce never worked a shift in his life. That Christmas, he got a brand new gaming console. I got a pair of shoes I paid for myself. When Bryce and Kayla got married, they wanted a truck big enough for camping trips they never took. I co-signed the loan. I made every payment for 18 months after he lost another job. The title still has my name on it somewhere. When Dad's heart gave out 6 years ago, the bill came in just under $40,000 after insurance. I put half on my credit card the day they wheeled him out of recovery. "I can't touch my retirement," Mom cried. "I'm still paying the interest." Rent transfers, childcare licensing fees, baseball registration, down payments, emergency co-pays. In 3 years alone, I moved $29,412 into their accounts. I know the number because I started taking screenshots. Standing in that living room, watching my children sit empty-handed while someone else opened gifts I paid for, something inside me clicked into cold focus. This wasn't generosity anymore. It was exploitation. And it was about to end. I walked out to my SUV while they were still laughing. The cold hit me like a slap Nebraska winter, the kind that steals your breath and makes your eyelashes sting. The porch light threw a pale yellow circle onto the snow. And for one strange second, the air outside felt cleaner than anything inside that house. My hands didn't shake. That's the thing people don't understand about nurses in an emergency room. We don't always panic when we're scared. Sometimes fear makes you sharper, quieter, like your brain flips a switch from feel to do. I opened my trunk and lifted the floor panel like I'd done 100 times jumper cables, a first aid kit, a spare blanket, and under the spare tire, a thick blue folder I'd been adding to for months. The metal combination lock clicked open. 4 digits. My kids' birthdays? Because of course it was. I tucked the folder under my coat and stared at it for a second, feeling the weight of paper like it was a living thing. Proof, receipts, screenshots, statements, transfers, notes. A timeline of every time I had said yes when I should have said no. Then I went back inside. The living room was still buzzing. Gage was showing off his smartwatch to my dad like he'd invented time itself. Kayla sat cross-legged on the carpet, scrolling through laptop settings, laughing, her phone still in her hand. Bryce cracked open another beer, already comfortable in the story where he was the funny guy and everyone else was too sensitive. Bailey and Dylan were on the couch, shoulders stiff, hands folded in their laps. My mother was watching them like they were a problem she didn't want to deal with. I walked straight to the coffee table and set the folder down with a soft thud. It wasn't loud, but it landed like a gavel. Conversation stuttered. Kayla's laughter caught in her throat. Bryce's hand froze halfway to his mouth. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Everybody stop, I said. My voice came out calm, almost clinical. The same tone I use in the ER when a family member is spiraling and I need them to breathe. My mother blinked at me. Gretchen. Stop, I repeated, and the words sliced through the room. Bailey looked up first, like she recognized that tone. Dylan followed, eyes wide. I opened the folder. The top page was a hospital billing statement from 6 years ago, Larry Donovan's triple bypass surgery. My name circled in red where the payment posted. I held it up so no one could pretend they didn't see it. Then I turned the page. A copy of Bryce's truck title paperwork. The payment history printed from my bank, 18 months of monthly withdrawals, my account number at the bottom. Then rent transfers 4 separate payments to their landlord. Timestamps right there. Amounts highlighted. Then Kayla's childcare licensing packet. State fees, background checks, CPR course receipts, playground safety upgrades, the wire confirmation from my bank for the exact week Gage started preschool. I turned pages slowly, like I was reading vitals, like I was documenting a case. Because I was... Baseball registration for Gage 3 seasons. New tires after Bryce blew out his last set racing down the interstate. A down payment on Kayla's minivan when the truck wasn't family-friendly enough. Medication co-pays for my mom when Dad's insurance changed. Emergency bills that somehow always landed in my inbox. Venmo requests labeled family help with the little heart emoji Kayla loved to add. The room didn't just go quiet. It emptied. Even the furnace seemed to hold its breath before clicking on in the basement. My dad stared at the carpet like he wished it could swallow him whole. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Kayla's cheeks went red so fast it looked like someone had slapped her. Bryce tried to smile, like he could charm his way out of anything. The smile died halfway. Gretchen, he said, voice cracking on my name. What are you doing? I turned to the last page. The total... A clean spreadsheet I'd printed the night before. The running number I updated each month. $29,412 over the last 3 years alone. Not counting Christmas gifts. Not counting the little things like gas money, groceries, school supplies, birthday party deposits, the random $40 here and there that added up like bleeding you don't notice until you're weak. I held the total up for 1 full second. Then I set the paper down on the coffee table between us. That, I said softly, is what I've been doing. No one spoke. I could hear my own breathing. Slow. Even every face in that room was different, but they all wore the same expression. The shock of people who truly believed they'd never be held accountable. I looked at my kids. Bailey's eyes were glossy but steady. Dylan's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching, like he was trying not to cry in front of people who didn't deserve it. Then I looked at Bryce. "And I'm done," I said. Kayla made a small sound, like a laugh that didn't know where to go. This is insane." "It's documented," I replied. My mother finally found her voice, sharp with panic. "Gretchen, don't do this! Not tonight! It's Christmas!" "That's exactly why I'm doing it tonight," I said. And my voice didn't shake once. "Because you've all been hiding behind holidays for years. You use family like it's a shield." Bryce stood up fast enough to knock a beer bottle. It rolled onto the carpet and stopped against the edge of the coffee table. "You can't just show up with a stack of papers," he snapped, trying to pull the room back under his control. "And act like we owe you something." I didn't blink. "I'm not acting," I said. "I'm stating facts." Kayla's arms folded tight across her chest. "You're making a scene. In front of the kids." I leaned slightly forward. "No," I said, quiet and deadly. "You made a scene in front of the kids when you filmed my children watching your son open their gifts." Kayla's eyes flicked to her phone like she'd forgotten it existed. My dad cleared his throat from the recliner, his old move. The one he did when he wanted the moment to pass without him taking a side. Nothing came after it. Just silence. My mother's voice went softer, pleading. "Gretchen, honey, Bryce didn't mean it like that. Kayla was just joking. You know how they are." I stared at her for a long moment. And what I wanted to say, what I had swallowed for years, rose like bile. But I kept my voice steady. "Mom," I said, "I know exactly how they are. And I know exactly how you are." Her face tightened. "Excuse me? You've been letting them do this," I said. "You've been participating. You laugh. You minimize. You call me dramatic. You tell me I always come through. Like I'm some kind of machine that prints money and never gets tired." Bryce scoffed. "You're acting like we forced you. You chose to help." I nodded slowly. "True," I said. "I did choose." Then I pointed at the folder. "And now I'm choosing something else." My voice sharpened. Just a little. "As of January 1st, I said, the money stops. No more rent transfers. No more paying for baseball. No more surprise bills. No more family emergencies that magically land in my lap." Bryce's face twisted. "So you're just gonna let us struggle?" I stared at him like he'd said something absurd. "You're 35 years old," I said. "You can figure it out." Kayla stepped forward, chin lifted, trying to reclaim her power. "You can't take back gifts. Once you give them..." I cut her off without raising my voice. "I didn't give them to you," I said. "I bought them for the kids. All of them. Equally." I turned my head slightly, looking at Gage. He was still sitting cross-legged by the tree, laptop open, smartwatch flashing. His face was confused now, like he was realizing adults were fighting because of him. My stomach twisted because none of this was his fault. So I softened my voice when I spoke again. "Gage," I said gently, "sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. This isn't about you." His eyes darted to Kayla, then to Bryce. Kayla's mouth opened. I lifted one hand, palm out. "No," I said, still gentle but firm. "This is about your parents using you as a weapon." Kayla's face went pure fury. "How dare you?" Bryce exploded, voice loud now, the mask gone. "Get out of here with that!" he shouted, sweeping his hand toward the door like he owned the whole house. "You're not going to stand here and poison our kid against us." Bailey flinched. Dylan's fists clenched. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The same cold calm I get when a patient's blood pressure drops and I have to move fast. "Watch your mouth," I said quietly. Bryce's eyes narrowed. "Or what?" I looked him straight in the face. "Or you're going to realize," I said, "that I've been carrying you so long you forgot what it feels like to stand on your own legs." He stared at me, chest heaving, like he couldn't believe I was talking back. My mother stepped between us, like she could physically block consequences. "Bryce!" she scolded, then turned to me. "Gretchen, please, you're upsetting everyone." I glanced around the room. Kayla's phone was still in her hand, but she wasn't filming now. She was gripping it like a weapon. My dad wouldn't look up. Bryce looked like he wanted to punch a wall. And my kids looked like they were waiting for me to decide whether we were going to swallow this again. I didn't. I knelt by the tree and I started pulling boxes with Gage's name on them. Kayla gasped. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer her first. I pulled out the laptop box, then the smartwatch packaging, then the gaming headset still in its plastic wrap. Sneakers Kayla had bragged were limited edition, a drone in a glossy black box. I stacked everything neatly by the door. Bailey and Dylan watched for a second. Then Bailey slid off the couch and walked over. Without a word, she picked up a box and carried it to the pile. Dylan followed, small but determined, lifting a package with both hands like it was heavier than it looked. My throat tightened. Not because I was sad, because I was proud. Kayla rushed forward, face tight with rage and humiliation. "Stop, those are his! He already opened them!" I stood up slowly, holding the drone box against my chest. And I met her eyes. She reached for it anyway, fingers stretching out. I shifted it just out of reach. A calm, controlled movement. "No," I said. Kayla's voice went sharp, almost shrill. "You are ruining this. You're making yourself look crazy. You're going to traumatize the kids." "The kids were fine until you decided to humiliate mine for entertainment," I said, and my voice cut clean through her panic. Bryce stepped toward me, jaw clenched. "Come on," he said, lowering his voice like he was trying a different tactic. "Sis, it was a joke." I looked at Bailey, then Dylan, then back at Bryce. "Tell that to their faces," I said. "Right now, look at them and tell them it was a joke." Bryce's eyes flicked to my kids. He couldn't do it, because even he knew that would make him a villain out loud. Kayla's face twisted. "You've always hated us." I almost laughed. What I felt wasn't hate. It was clarity. I took a breath. Then I said the words I had rehearsed in my head for months while driving home from night shifts, while folding laundry, while staring at my bank account after another small favor request. "This is the last time," I said, slow and deliberate. "The last time you treat me like an ATM. The last time you treat my kids like they're less than." My mother's voice cracked. "Gretchen, please, don't do this. We're family." I turned to her, and I let myself be honest. "Family doesn't mean I have to let you hurt us," I said. "Family doesn't mean you get unlimited access to my money and my silence." My dad finally spoke, voice gravelly. "Now hold on." I looked at him, and he stopped, because there was nothing he could say that didn't require him to admit he'd been complicit. I turned back to the pile of gifts. "Bailey," I said softly. "Coat. Dylan. Hat." They moved immediately, like they'd been waiting for permission. I walked to the hallway closet and pulled their jackets down, zipped Bailey's coat up to her chin, pulled Dylan's beanie over his ears. I moved with the same efficient tenderness I use at work. Fast, careful, protective. Kayla hissed. "You are so selfish." Bryce's voice rose again, rough with anger. "You're going to regret this. You're throwing away your whole family over presents." I didn't look away. "No," I said. "I'm protecting my family from people who keep taking." Then I opened the front door. The wind rushed in, sharp and clean, swirling snow across the porch light. It felt like stepping into truth. My mother called my name once, one last attempt, voice breaking. I didn't turn around. Bailey grabbed my hand. Dylan carried the smallest box, like it weighed nothing, holding it close to his chest. We walked down the salted steps, across the driveway, loaded everything into the back of my SUV. I buckled them in, climbed behind the wheel, and I pulled away without looking in the rearview mirror. The heater blasted warm air into the car, fogging the windows. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. Bailey stared out the window for a while. Then she whispered, "Mom?" "Yeah, baby. Did we do something bad?" My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No," I said immediately. "We did something brave." Dylan's voice came small from the back seat. "Are they going to be mad?" I glanced at him through the mirror. "They might be," I said. "But being mad doesn't make them right." Bailey swallowed. "So, we're not going back?" I took a breath. The truth tasted strange, like a new medicine. "No," I said. "Not like it was." When we got home, our house looked the way it always did. Small, a little cramped, lived in, a pile of laundry half folded on the couch, a school project on the kitchen table, a single strand of Christmas lights that flickered because I'd never gotten around to replacing the bulb. But it felt different. It felt like it belonged to us again. We carried the gifts inside and stacked them by our own tree, our little tree, the one with handmade ornaments and construction paper snowflakes, Dylan taped to the branches. Bailey stood there, staring at the pile. "Does this mean we get to open them?" she asked carefully, like she didn't trust hope anymore. I crouched in front of her. "This means," I said, brushing hair out of her face, "we're going to have the kind of Christmas where nobody gets to make you feel small." Her eyes filled up. She nodded once, hard. Dylan whispered, "Can we make cinnamon rolls tomorrow?" I smiled, the first real smile of the night. "Yes," I said, "we're making cinnamon rolls." Later, after they were in bed, I sat alone at my kitchen table with my phone face down. My body was exhausted, but my brain was wide awake. That's the ER curse. You can survive chaos, but you can't always come down from it. I thought about the folder, about my mother's hand to her throat, about my dad staring at the carpet, about Kayla's red face, about Bryce's voice shouting like he could scare me back into place. And I thought about my kids, the way Bailey stepped forward without a word, the way Dylan carried a box like it mattered. I had done the right thing. I knew it in my bones. But I also knew my family wouldn't accept it quietly. They were going to come for me. And this time, I wasn't going to survive by staying silent. I was going to survive by staying firm. My phone buzzed. I flipped it over. A message from Bryce. "You embarrassed us. You looked unhinged. Bring the laptop back tomorrow." Then another, "Gage already set it up. Don't be petty." Then Kayla, "Can't believe you did that. You've always been jealous. You ruined Christmas." Then my mom, "Call me. Please." I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered. The old version of me, the version trained by years of guilt, wanted to respond, to explain, to soften, to patch the wound so everyone else could keep living like nothing happened. But a different part of me, the part that had set the folder down like a gavel, stayed still. I opened my contacts, and one by one, I muted them. Not blocked yet, just muted, because I needed one night of peace before the next battle. I set the phone back down, and for the first time in years, I let myself imagine a life where my paycheck belonged to my children. A life where my no didn't require a paragraph of justification. A life where love didn't come with an invoice. In the dark, my house made small sounds, pipes settling, the refrigerator humming, wind tapping at the window. I sat there and made a decision so quiet no one could hear it but me. I wasn't just cutting off money. I was cutting off access. And I was going to do it the right way. Not with rage, with structure, with boundaries that held up in court, in family gossip, in every attempt they would make to pull me back into my old role. Because if there's one thing an ER nurse knows, it's this. You don't wait until someone bleeds out to start treatment. You stop the hemorrhage, and you don't apologize for it. That night, before I went to bed, I opened my laptop, my own, old, and scratched, and started typing a list. Not an emotional list, a practical one. Cancel every automatic transfer. Freeze shared accounts I'd foolishly kept open for emergencies. Change passwords. Pull my credit report because if Bryce ever co-signed something else in my name, I needed to know. Document everything from tonight, what was said, what was taken, what was filmed. And then, at the bottom, one more line. Teach Bailey and Dylan what healthy love looks like. I stared at that last sentence for a long time. Then I shut the laptop, and I finally let myself sleep. Christmas morning was coming, and for once, it was going to be ours. But I didn't know yet that the real fight wasn't going to happen in my parents' living room. It was going to happen after, when Bryce realized I meant it. When Kayla decided to turn herself into the victim, when my mother tried to drag me back with tears, and when my father, quiet, avoidant, always watching, would be forced to choose a side. Because once you stop being the family bank, people don't just get mad. They get desperate. And desperate people will say anything to make you feel like the villain for finally protecting yourself. Christmas morning arrived quietly. No slammed doors. No forced smiles. No one performing happiness for an audience that didn't deserve it. I woke up before my alarm, the way I always do after a high-stress shift. The house was still dark, the kind of dark that feels soft instead of heavy. Snow tapped against the kitchen window in small, steady clicks. The digital clock on the microwave reads 6:12 a.m. For the first time in years, my chest didn't tighten when I thought about the day ahead. No driving across town, no bracing myself for comments, no rehearsing polite responses in my head. Just us. I padded into the kitchen and started the cinnamon rolls. The smell filled the house, slowly warm, sweet, grounding. I stood there in my socks, arms crossed, breathing it in, like proof that peace could be simple. Bailey came down first, wrapped in her blanket, hair sticking up in every direction. "Is it really Christmas?" she whispered, like she didn't want to scare it away. I smiled. "It really is." Dylan followed a minute later, clutching the robotics kit box like he'd slept with it under his pillow. He didn't say anything at first, just sat at the table and watched the oven light glow. We didn't rush. We poured hot chocolate and took turns opening gifts, one at a time, passing boxes around, watching each other's faces instead of checking reactions from across the room. Bailey squealed over the art set, the exact one she'd circled in a store catalog weeks earlier, convinced it was too expensive. Dylan built a tiny motor that spun when he clapped his hands, laughing every time it worked, like it was magic. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, watching them, feeling something lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The phone stayed face down on the counter, but it didn't stay quiet. By 10 o'clock, it started lighting up like a heart monitor, going wild. I didn't look right away. We finished breakfast. We cleaned up together. Bailey sketched a picture of the three of us around our little tree. Dylan explained, in intense detail, how the robot worked. When I finally flipped my phone over, the screen was full. Bryce. Kyla. My mother. Message after message. "You ruined Gage's Christmas. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. You've always thought you were better than us. Family doesn't treat each other like that." Kayla posted a story. Someone had sent me a screenshot, a photo of the empty space under the tree where the gifts had been. Some people forget what the holidays are really about. She tagged no one, but she didn't have to. My mother called twice, left one voicemail. Her voice was thin, shaky, like she was trying a new angle. "Gretchen, honey, we just need to talk. Please, for the kids." I didn't listen past that. I muted the conversation again and set the phone down. Because this was exactly why I had done what I'd done. They weren't sorry. They weren't reflective. They weren't embarrassed by their behavior. They were angry that I had interrupted the system. I poured more hot chocolate, handed Dylan another cinnamon roll, and let Christmas be quiet. The real work started the day after. That Monday, I dropped the kids off at school and drove straight to my bank before my shift. I sat in the parking lot for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, heart steady. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was administrative. Inside, I spoke to a woman named Carol, mid-50s, calm voice, glasses on a chain. The kind of person who has seen everything and doesn't flinch. "I need to cancel several automatic transfers," I said, sliding a list across the desk. She scanned it, eyebrows lifting slightly. "That's a lot of recurring payments." "Yes," I said. "They all end today." She didn't ask why. She just nodded and started typing. Rent transfers, insurance reimbursements, monthly help payments disguised as gifts. One by one, they disappeared. Then I closed the shared savings account I'd opened years ago just in case. I transferred the balance to my personal account and signed the paperwork with a hand that didn't shake. "Anything else?" Carol asked. "Yes," I said. "I want to freeze my credit." That finally made her look up. "Is everything okay?" I met her eyes. "I don't know yet," I said honestly, "but I'm about to find out." That afternoon, between patients, I pulled my credit report on my phone. I sat in the break room under fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic thick in the air, scrolling slowly. And then I saw it. A credit inquiry from 6 months earlier. Not mine. A store-branded card application rejected, but still logged. Address listed, my parents' house. My chest went tight, not with panic, but with recognition. I kept scrolling. There it was again. Another inquiry. Another attempt. Always under the threshold that would have triggered alerts. Always just enough to test the waters. I thought about the times Bryce had joked, "You've got good credit, sis." The times my mom had asked casually if I'd checked my score lately. The way Kayla always insisted on helping with paperwork. They hadn't just been using my money. They'd been circling my identity. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, timestamped everything, and I felt something shift. Because now this wasn't just about boundaries. It was about protection. The calls escalated. Bryce left voicemails that swung wildly between rage and guilt. "You think you're some kind of hero now?" Gage cried himself to sleep. "You're tearing the family apart." Kayla went quieter but sharper. Long messages about forgiveness, about modeling kindness for the kids, about how trauma echoes through generations. My mother tried a different tactic. She showed up at my house. I opened the door and saw her standing there, coat buttoned wrong, eyes red. "I just want to talk," she said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "We can talk," I said. "Out here." Her mouth tightened. "Why are you being like this?" I looked at her, the woman who taught me how to cook, how to iron scrubs, how to smile through discomfort. "I'm not being like anything," I said. "I'm being clear." She tried to cry. When that didn't work, she tried anger. "You think you can just cut everyone off?" she snapped. "After everything we've done for you?" I didn't raise my voice. "Name one thing," I said. "One thing you've done for me as an adult that didn't come with strings." She opened her mouth, closed it, looked past me at the house, like she could see the life I'd built without her. "This is your brother," she said quietly. "He needs help." "So did I replied. "For years." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And maybe she was. That night, after the kids were asleep, I opened my laptop again. I made folders, financial records, texts and voicemails, credit reports, Christmas incident. I wrote everything down while it was fresh, dates, exact words, who was present. Not because I planned to sue anyone, but because I'd learned, working in emergency medicine, that documentation is the difference between chaos and clarity. And if things escalated, I wanted clarity. The final straw came 3 weeks later. I was charting when my phone buzzed with a notification from my bank. Overdraft alert, attempted withdrawal. Amount, $2,000. Account, the old savings account, the one I'd closed. I stared at the screen. Then the name popped up. Sandra Donovan. My mother had tried to pull money from an account that no longer existed. Not by accident, by habit. I felt something go still inside me. That was the moment I knew. They hadn't heard me. They hadn't believed me. They thought this was temporary, emotional, something I'd cool down from. So I did the last thing I'd been avoiding. I sent one message, a single group text. "This is not a phase. This is not a negotiation. Any further attempts to access my finances or credit will be documented and handled accordingly. Do not contact me unless you are prepared to respect this boundary." I sent it. Then I archived the thread. Bailey asked that night, "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad?" I thought carefully before answering. "They're adjusting," I said. "Sometimes people don't like it when you stop doing what benefits them." Dylan nodded like that made sense. Kids understand fairness better than adults do. I slept deeply that night. Not because everything was resolved, but because for the first time, the plan was in motion. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was building something solid. And the people who had depended on my silence were about to find out what happens when the person holding everything together finally lets go. 10 months later, the heat came early. August in Omaha doesn't ease in. It arrives like a weight. 95 degrees by noon. Asphalt shimmering. The kind of heat that clings to your skin long after the sun goes down. I was coming off a 12-hour shift, hair still damp from the hospital shower, when my phone rang. A number I hadn't seen since December. My mother. I stared at the screen for a full 3 rings before answering. "Hello?" She didn't bother with small talk. "The house is going on the market next week," she said, voice tight. "We can't keep up with the mortgage and the property taxes without your transfers." I leaned back against my car and closed my eyes. The words landed exactly where I'd expected them to. Silence stretched between us. The realtor says we should downsize, she added. Softer now. There's a 2-bedroom condo near the interstate. I pictured my parents' ranch-style house, the one I'd grown up in. The same driveway Bryce's truck used to block. The same living room where my kids had been humiliated for entertainment. And Dad? I asked. She hesitated. He just nodded. When we went over the numbers, I let the heat press against my back. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, I said finally. Her breath caught. So you'll help? There it was. The old expectation, dressed up as hope. I shook my head slowly, even though she couldn't see me. No, I said. I won't. Her voice cracked. Gretchen, I meant what I said, I told her. This isn't punishment, it's reality. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just said, very quietly, okay, and hung up. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It happened in pieces. Bryce and Kayla lasted 4 months under my parents' roof once the money stopped. When Mom laid out the new rules, everyone pays their share of groceries and utilities or finds somewhere else. Bryce laughed, until he realized she was serious. By May, they were gone. 2 duffel bags, Gage's gaming console, stuffed into the back of Kayla's old minivan. They rented a room at the Budget Inn off the I-80 interchange, the one with the flickering sign and the pool that never quite filled. $49 a night if you paid by the week. Kayla tried to spin it online, posted about downsizing, about simplifying, but the posts slowed, then stopped. Dad's health took a hit next. Stress, the cardiologist said. Blood pressure through the roof. A mild stroke that left his left hand trembling when he tried to hold a coffee cup. My mother called from the ER, the same one I worked in, asking if I could cover the new deductible. I let it ring, listened to the voicemail notification, and deleted it without pressing play. The letters started arriving in June. Thick envelopes, Bryce's handwriting on the front, return address, the motel. Inside were folded notebook pages and cashier's checks for random amounts. $300 one month, $412 the next. Always with the same note, toward what we owe. I never opened the second or third envelope. They went straight from the mailbox to the trash. Unopened. Kayla tried a different approach. A handwritten card on heavy stationery, the kind people use for weddings. A $50 bill tucked inside. We're trying to make it right, she wrote. Gage asks about his cousins. I didn't tear it up. I just dropped it into the bin. In July, a for sale sign went up in my parents' front yard. My mother sent a group text with a photo of the sign and the caption, bittersweet. I left the chat. Bailey saw the picture over my shoulder and asked, why is Grandma moving? I thought for a moment. Sometimes, I said, people have to live with the choices they make. She nodded and went back to her sketchbook. No follow-up questions. By September, the house was sold. My mother left one last voicemail. Her voice sounded older, tired. We found a place, she said. We'll be out by the end of the month. She paused a long time. We miss you. And the kids. I saved the message. Archived it. Didn't reply. Life didn't become perfect. But it became lighter. I still worked long shifts. Still came home tired. Still packed lunches and folded laundry late at night. But the money stayed where it belonged. The mortgage on our little house was paid off 2 years early. Bailey started middle school with sneakers she picked herself. Dylan joined a travel robotics team that actually traveled something I never could have afforded before. We took weekend trips to the Henry Dorley Zoo, ate ice cream on the pedestrian bridge, sat on the grass and watched the river without checking the time. I stopped bracing myself every time my phone buzzed. Because the family group chat no longer existed on my phone. Sometimes, I drive past the old neighborhood. The new owners painted the front door red. It looks better that way. People ask if I feel guilty. The answer is no. Guilt belongs to the person who keeps taking. Peace belongs to the person who finally stops giving. If you're listening to this and something in your chest feels tight, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not selfish for protecting your children. You are not obligated to fund someone else's comfort at the expense of your own stability. Love, does not require silence. Family does not require sacrifice without limits. And if the people around you only value you for what you provide, money, time, emotional labor, then what they're afraid of losing isn't you. It's access. I didn't lose my family that Christmas. I found mine. To every woman who has ever felt like the family bank, the emotional shock absorber, the one who always comes through no matter the cost, you're allowed to stop. And when you do, the right people will stay. The rest were never yours to carry. If you made it to the end, thank you for staying with me. And if you've ever had to draw a line to protect your peace, you're not alone. You never were.